This channel is made possible through the support of generous listeners just like you. If you would like to be a part of helping us bring our message of hope, peace, love, and spiritual truth to the world, please consider heading to experienceofthesoul.com/support, where you can join us as an ongoing patron or simply make a one-time gift. Blessings on the journey, dear friend.
CCU Orlando, Natural Awakenings Magazine, and Unity of Nashville present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 69, Taking Out the Trash. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to The Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice and I am the host. I'm here in 818 Studios with my producer.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Croft. Hope you are doing okay. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. We're so glad always to be in the studio. Dave is an amazing producer, so I'm just lifting him up today and going,
I appreciate
yay,
that.
Dave.
Thank you. If you can't see me, but I'm giving you the sign language for thank you.
Yes. So we are lifting up a country too, so I will say to all of our listeners in Japan, Ohayo gozaimasu, o genki desu ka? Ohayo gozaimasu.
I noticed you did the bow.
Yes, the bow,
You
yes.
put your hands on your...
Yes. Now, women bow with their hands in the front. Theoretically, is to hold their skirt and smooth their skirt, even though I'm wearing holy blue jeans today. So, yeah, there's proper ways to bow. Men bow with their hands to the side. Women...
I never knew that. Now that you say it, yeah, I can totally see it.
Yes. Well,
but no, I never actually knew that.
We are grateful for our listeners in Japan, and I know as a Japanese person right now, you're laughing that I'm trying to explain Japanese culture and custom because the intricacies of your culture are extremely complex. So the way you would speak to a young man is different than how you would speak to an old man. You know, there are certain greetings, certain ways of speaking, and also the great humility that is in the Japanese culture that one is always almost apologizing for their presence in front of a group. So it's interesting if you're in Japan that you like this show, and I thank you for that. So I also really, really honor your culture, and I've always wanted to go. That's another one of the places I've always wanted to go.
I've never been to Japan. I do have one of my students from Memphis who is from rural North Carolina, like Cullowhee, North Carolina. And he got a job over there. I don't know exactly what he's doing. It might be his wife or something.
Right.
And so this is a guy plucked from rural sticks of North Carolina, living in Japan, and he's having a great time. Loves it over there. Been there over almost 5 years now.
Right. So we say to you, arigato gozaimasu, which of course is a very polite way to say thank you. Arigato gozaimasu. So, and I know you're saying back to me, dou itashimashite. So, and I thank you for that. So here we are. This is give it to me, Dave, show 69,
Show
right?
69, yep.
69, the year I was born. Praise God. And the title for today is Taking Out the Trash. Taking Out the Trash. I was inspired by this message when the other day I walked into my home and I said, something is strange in here. There is a smell that this is yuck. And I have animals, so I was walking around the house. I was like, I just need to take out the trash. This is disgusting. So I took out the trash, and of course, everything felt better. The air was lifted. Of course, a little breeze. I had to get in through the house, and everything shifted. Well, I know this is kind of a funny story to begin with, but this is how it is when we have unwanted things in our mind, body, and soul. And we can't see those things. They're not always as obvious as walking into a house, especially a hot house in Florida where the trash needs to be taken out. But there's a smell that you can't get out, that you have to remove it to get the energy shifted and changed and moving forward in your home. So in our minds, in our bodies, and in our souls, there is trash that we've built up. And so in our mind, what is it? It's old thoughts. It's old triggers. It's old ways of thinking about things. It's looking at the world through an old, dirty lens that we are still believing is right. In your body is putting food in that you don't need. And so when your body is full of trash and toxins, it doesn't operate well, right? So your mind can't see clearly when your mind is filled with junk, when your mind is filled with old thoughts and old ways of being. Your body can't function when it's filled with stuff that you don't need. Toxins, sugars, inflammatories, things that are clogging up your adrenals. Your body can't move. And certainly in your soul, it's virtually the same way as well. So obviously, all these are working together. Your soul is working with what? Your emotions, your beliefs, even, I will even say, even past life things. So what I'm talking what I'm talking about is removing the things we no longer need from our environment so we can have a clean, clear space to operate in. And of course, this even impacts our physical space. We've talked about this in the very beginnings of the show. And lately, in my one-on-ones with people and just in conversations, I've really been learning again, in a deeper and deeper way, how clearing out our physical space can move the energy in our lives. So today's title, Taking Out the Trash, is so we can remove the things we no longer need and be in the flow.
Yeah, the things that are stinking up our life.
Exactly. The things that are stinking up our life. And what's so weird about the things in the mind, body, and soul is those things are a lot more subtle than your trash.
Yes.
Like I say, you live in Florida. Of course, you can live in a cold place and it's not as obvious. But when you live in Florida, if there's something in your trash and it shouldn't be there and you need to take it out, as soon as you walk in the house, you go, yuck.
Yeah. Our HOA actually asks us to put our trash in our garage. Like
Yes.
our cans. And I don't do that because it's like a hot box in there.
It's like a hot box in there. Exactly right. Exactly right. So there was a movie I saw years ago, and I also read the book. It's by Dan Millman. The movie is called Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And what's so great about the movie, well, there are a lot of great things about the movie because it's about the spiritual journey. So if you haven't seen it, and by the way, I do know it is available on Amazon. It is The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. It's about Dan Millman's journey. And the spiritual teacher in the movie is played by none other than Nick Nolte, which I think is great. So Nick Nolte is an amazing spiritual teacher in the movie. And there's the main character in that movie is a gymnast. And he's really struggling with his place in life. And he finds a spiritual teacher. And there's a scene in there where the spiritual teacher is helping him. And he says to him, take out the trash. But when he's saying take out the trash, he's actually pointing to his mind. And then he gives him an experience that definitely takes out the trash. So I don't want to, give you too much of that experience because watching it will be like, oh.
Yeah, and we'll have a link to the trailer in the show notes.
Yeah, it's a great trailer. So and it's all about the spiritual journey. If you love thinking about, talking about, working your spiritual journey, that's definitely a movie you need to see. It's just a couple of hours and is really wonderful for getting your attention in what might be happening in your life. So we take out the trash so things can move and flow and feel good. It feels good to have a clean environment in your mind, body, and soul. Now, having said that, I don't suggest tackling all these three all at once. Amen?
Amen.
So I want you to think about where in your life do you feel kind of stuck? Because what I notice from a physical space, what I notice in working with people on the soul journey, the one place people feel stuck is the one thing they don't want to do. They would rather do other things that are easier. So taking out the trash is about looking at an area that's stuck, looking at an area that's beginning to rot because it's been left there so long, and do something. Get the energy moving. Get it up, get it out, move it on.
Wow, I'm getting a real picture of fruit. You know, how fruit, when it's alive and it's right and it's fresh, it's amazing. It tastes great. It's super sweet. But as soon as that time has passed, you don't keep old fruit around.
Yeah.
And if that fruit is no longer good, or if it's no longer nourishing you, or it's no longer ripe or fresh, but you're still hanging on to it, it's just going to sit there and stink up the place.
Right. And and I'm not saying you change every thought in your mind. I
Right.
mean, this is what's interesting. The process I've been in very recently is, how do I view myself? And those views of myself, I realize, are a combination of many things. How I view myself is how I was raised. It has to do with the place that I was raised. It has to do with my birth order. It has to do with the career I have chosen for myself. It has to do with my age. So all of these things are impacting how I view myself. But what I'm learning is many of those things, it's like, okay, spirit keeps going, but that's not who you are. That's not who you are. So I am in a process right now of really removing, like, it's like piece by piece. It's almost like tiny strands of belief that I'm picking out and looking at, like, for the very first time, even though I'm 50 years old. And some of these thoughts are so deep-seated and have been so unconscious. For the very first time, I'm looking at them. And I can tell you, and there have been many places where I've held myself back by my self-belief, by the thoughts I held about myself, which of course also includes my karmic memory, my karmic path that's brought me to this point. So today is a new day, and I get to decide today who I really am. I get to decide today, what are those beliefs I really want to believe? What are those thoughts I want to take in or not? And this is a very freeing thing. It's also a scary thing, because I'm losing the need to have other people define me, and me and God are working together on this. Me and God. Luckily, I have a supportive therapist as well. Praise God for the therapists in our life. So I do have a supportive therapist and friends who are saying, yes, we support you in this process. And it's slow and it's painstaking, but I'm going to tell you, it's worth it, because I'm already feeling freedom. I'm already stepping into new energy. And I know that because of how I feel. I know that because of feedback I received from others. And I know that from new ideas that are coming forward about what is possible for me. So it's not that everything in my life has to change and everything in my mind has to change, but I'm being conscious and I'm looking through what are the ways. So for me, it's this one small area, but it impacts every area, is how do I think about myself? And if you think about it, well, wherever you go, there you are. Everything you do is impacted by this one thing. How do I view myself in my life? How do I view my value? How do I decide what I'm capable of? All that comes back to thought. And those thoughts, some of them have been implanted in me from eons ago, and those are being looked at. Some of those are being released, and some of those are being still worked with, and on a very deep level. And so I want to encourage you, as I'm saying this, take out the trash. Don't get overwhelmed. I want you to choose one area. And remember, the area to work with is the one that you don't want to work with. You say, oh, I don't want to go there. Yeah, that's it.
When Shannon and I are actually physically cleaning up around the house, it can be really overwhelming. It's like, wow, there's so much stuff. So we do a thing called Project One Thing.
Oh, I love that.
Which is, if we're walking out of the bedroom, maybe going into the kitchen to get something, we will project one thing. We will pick just one small thing that we can maybe take out, clean up, whatever. And over the course of time, the one thing adds up. And so you're able to do the big thing by just tackling one thing at a time.
Oh, yes. I just went through the process of changing banks. Have you ever done that? Oh, my goodness.
It's been years, but
my goodness. I actually don't really recommend it, because, you've got two accounts, and then you've got one, and then you've got certain things coming out of one account and certain things coming out of another. And yesterday I felt a little in a blitz as I was going through some paperwork, and I said, if I just do one thing at a time, yes, I will not get overwhelmed. And then this morning before leaving, I said, oh, there's that stack I have to get back to. But you're right. It feels so good to just work on that one thing. And that one thing does impact everything else. That's what's so amazing. And so one of the keys really to taking out the trash is to just get started. Just get started. And I want to encourage you to really think about what is next for you. And one of the ways we do that, I want to talk about one easy way. one simple way, I'm not sure how easy it is, one simple way of taking out the trash in our mind, because that's really one of the things I'm working on. Simply breathe. And I'm doing that now. Breathe. In the prayer chaplain program that we teach at CCU Orlando, the prayer chaplain was originated by Reverend Leilani Burt. She's in Phoenix, Arizona. She says, breathe and go to your heart. Breathe and go to your heart. And so when you do that, when you breathe and go to your heart, the thoughts that have felt so jumbled, it's amazing. They just start to lift away. They start to dissipate. It's like what is once this like whirlwind of thoughts. When you take a deep breath and place your attention in your heart, the thoughts just begin to release. The thoughts begin to release. So you release chaos and confusion simply by breathing, going to your heart. So this is a wonderful technique if you're going into a meeting. If you just get strange news, I just got some difficult news about a friend before the show, and I had to do just this. I had to breathe and go to my heart. Before we started, I said, Dave, I need a minute. And while he was out of the studio, that's what I did. I breathed and I watched the thoughts literally just dissipate. I watch them just floating away. Sometimes they end up feeling like they're going in a cloud. Sometimes I just feel them release. But it's almost like they're just released through a sieve almost. They just release out. Breathe and go to your heart is a wonderful way to clear your mind of the trash, which is the noise, which is the thoughts, which is the whirlwind. We often call it the monkey mind, which is the whirlwind of all the thoughts that are keeping you out of the moment.
Yeah, I have such a hard time with this. Typically when if we're running late.
Oh, yes,
yes. This, especially on a Sunday morning or whatever. And Shannon will, she'll pick up on that frenetic energy that I put off, and she'll say, "Okay, Dave, breathe." And so she'll look at me in my eyes, and there have been times when I don't have time to breathe. We're late. I don't have time to breathe, which is stupid. That's
right. Of course,
you have to breathe.
You have to breathe.
And so I've caught myself okay, I'm ashamed. I'm just being authentic here. Right? I've caught myself fake breathing. Right?
Nice.
Because I'm like, no, you don't understand. We've got to go. So I'll be like, and okay, let's go. We're breathed. But I think she picks up on it. She knows. We've been married 25 years.
Yeah, you're saying this anxiety is helping me really.
So I'll hold my breath and just go. And she's like, what are you doing, Dave? So I'll just fake breathe.
I think you remind me of like a 7-year-old right now.
Because
so cute.
It's that mind, and she'll be
the
like,
mind.
Dave.
Yeah.
And once I give into it, then I never feel worse on the other side of that. You know what I mean?
Correct.
It only helps.
Well, and I want to say to all of you out there, like Dave, who have a wonderful mind, I've known a lot of wonderful thinkers. And so when we've gotten far with our minds, what happens is we think the mind is the solution for everything. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to believe that simply breathing could free us of this much anxiety and tension, not intention, anxiety and tension, so that as we breathe, the mind gets to take a breath. And so it's like the mind gets to breathe. When there's all these thoughts, it's almost like assaulting yourself with trying to process information faster that can actually be processed. So again, if you have a really good mind, you are educated, you love to think, then, or maybe even no education at all, but you're a big thinker, this little process that seems very simple, and it is, but I promise you it'll be profound in your life as you learn to breathe, as you learn to shift, because what you're doing is you're shifting consciousness. So this should be a very wonderful practice for you. We're going to talk about more of those practices as we come back right after this break. And again, thank you for joining us today.
We'll return to the program in just a few minutes, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, CCU Orlando, who has helped make this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey possible. CCU Orlando is a welcoming community dedicated to transforming lives, celebrating diversity, and supporting soul growth. CCU Orlando is located at 771 Holden Avenue in Orlando, Florida, with Sunday services at 9 and 11 a.m. You can stream services live online as well as learn more at christchurchunity.net. We'd also like to thank Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by calling 407-628-0705. And finally, we'd like to extend our special thanks to Unity of Nashville, a sister ministry of CCU Orlando. If you're searching for a like-minded church community and a personal connection that supports your heart and mind in the Central Tennessee area, then join Unity of Nashville at 10 a.m. every Sunday morning at 5125 Franklin Pike. For more information, head over to unityofnashville.org. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
And welcome back to the second half of the show. We're so glad you're joining us today for this important topic, taking out the trash. And I hope you are tracking with us in terms of really working with the mind. Again, that just happens to be the area I'm really working with in my own life right now. But also, again, what I realize, any one area that we choose, it doesn't have to be the mind, really does impact every other area. There was a good friend I had years ago. We're actually still in contact, but he was a wonderful friend. We shared a home, and he really taught me the spiritual lesson of moving things in your physical life. He was a sound and AV person. He was an independent contractor, so if he was not working, he was not getting paid. And when I lived with him, I was in ministerial school, and I watched him over and over and over. If he was not getting gigs, he did not have anything on the books, he would go out to the garage, clean up all his sound gear, wrap all the cables and clean them up, see if there was any repair, made sure everything was working, the microphones, the cables, made sure everything was dusted and vacuumed. And wouldn't you know it, as he moved the energy on those things, work would come in. And so it was like he, moving that energy physically, said to the universe, I'm ready to go to work. It said to the universe, I'm ready to be of service. And so it was cleaning out, but as he cleaned out, it made room to receive more. So really, the law we are talking about in this whole show is often called the law of circulation. It's also called the law of giving and receiving. It's called the law of karma. It is called the law of cause and effect. So we're saying it in a way we can all relate to, which is we take out the trash, we remove what we no longer need, and then the universe comes in and fills this place. But first we have to give, because if you're holding on to something, it's hard to receive with a closed hand. I hope you can see this if you're watching on YouTube. My hands might look really big. I'm going to come at you like that. We practiced this in a class I just did a few weeks ago, where we had a room full of people, and at their table I said, okay, everybody turn to the person next to you, put your hands in a fist, and say to the person next to you, hand me something. It's really, really hard to receive when our hands are closed. But then I said, okay, now open your hand and say, now receive. Of course, the receiving was very easy. So as we take out the trash, as we release what no longer serves us, we make room to receive. So not only are we releasing what we do not need, we're setting up to be in the flow of the universe's good in our lives. And that's the whole point of this message, of this service, of this show today. I feel like we're having church as you go down the road. This is the new church. That's right. And so I really encourage you to move the energy. So don't be afraid to, or don't minimize, rather. I know you're not afraid. Don't minimize doing something in the physical world. I was glad you brought that up, Dave, about your project and Project One Thing.
Project One Thing.
Project One Thing. You ought to. It seems like you ought to be able to, market that.
Write a book about it.
Project One Thing. So So don't minimize the spiritual impact moving things on the physical level can make. I really, really encourage you to do that. And if you're not sure where to start in your mind, body, or soul, start with your physical life, and that will help because that will get the energy moving. And usually that's a lot easier to start, and it's physical. Sometimes in spiritual work, we go, well, I don't know what to do. And so we let ourselves become stymied, and we just add more trash on the heap with that thought, right? Right. I don't know what to do. The universe says, you're right. Here's some more trash. And so then we seem more stuck, right? So we want to begin in some way. Again, starting in the physical is wonderful. Working in the mind, I've said quite a bit about my process in that, but I do want to talk a little bit in the second half about body and soul. And so, so body and soul. So, I was talking with some friends yesterday that I work with, and we were commenting about how now, very often, if you go to the doctor, if you're 50 or older, if you're not on at least 3 medications, doctors are surprised because most of the patients they see are on a lot of medications. I mean, they're pleasantly surprised and supportive. I'm not saying anything negative about doctors, but they're surprised because so many people are on medications. Well, if your doctor has told you your cholesterol is high and you continue to do the same things, that is adding trash to the pile. But if your doctor tells you your cholesterol is high and you decide to change the way you eat and to add exercise into your plan, you're going to be releasing, right, fats. You're going to be releasing energy you don't need, and that cholesterol is going to balance out. And you say, well, what if I have it naturally in my family? Well, you talk that over with your doctor. But what I can tell you in my own family is that my dad died of a heart attack. His brother, all of this has been in the family, but all the behaviors were the same. Mm-hmm. As I have changed my behaviors, I do not have high blood pressure. My blood pressure is low. I do not have heart problems. My blood pressure, it's like every time I go in, they go, that's perfect. Everybody would love a blood pressure like that. And over the years, and I have had some physical, significant physical issues I've had to deal with, it woke me up to the point I had to change the habits I was doing, or I was not going to make it. So I want to encourage you to really be in communication with your body and see if that's the area you're to work with right now. You know, as a culture, we're more out of shape probably than any other culture in the world, and we have the most resources. So it doesn't make sense. And of course, by the way, next month we're going to have Dr. Michelle Robin with us, who's going to talk even more about the body and our care of it. But I just want to lift this up. One of the main things, even for the body, you can do is drink water. Drink more water. I think the body is something like 80% water or something like that. So as you drink water, what you do is you're flushing the toxins out of your system, and try to get good water too. So we want to encourage you to move that trash out of the physical body as well, because believe it or not, that wakes you up. That wakes you up mentally. That wakes you up physically. That wakes you up spiritually. The body being in good condition supports the work of your soul and supports the mind. I have learned over the years that because of the stomach issues I had years ago, if you have leaky gut, your mind is foggy and you can't think and you can't focus and concentrate. So they're intimately related. Right? If you worry all the time, you get an ulcer, right? So the gut and the mind are intimately connected. So you might be called right now into doing that area of work, not even realizing as you do it, this is impacting your physical life, your mind, and your spiritual life. So I encourage you to just be in prayer about what is mine to do. Is it on the physical plane? Is it, with moving things in my physical environment? Is it working with my mind and these thoughts I have about myself? Is it working at the level of the body? And I don't want you to get overwhelmed. I had somebody in a class one day say, well, I know I'm supposed to journal every day and I'm supposed to forgive every day. Am I supposed to do this every day too? And I said, well, you have to decide what is important to you right now, but several of these practices can go on concurrently. So if you're working with the body, it doesn't mean you stop meditating or doing your affirmations. It might mean that they're focused around the issue you're really working on.
Yeah, and you can one thing for example, you can
Yeah.
project one thing, the water. Like I'm going to replace one cup of coffee, or I'm going to replace one soda or whatever
Mm-hmm.
with in equal parts water, and
Mm-hmm.
make it once a day.
Yes.
And then I find whenever I go into, hey Dave, you need to eat better, then it compounds on itself. And so
It
I'm
does.
motivated to
Mm-hmm.
keep doing it
Mm-hmm.
because I'm seeing results. I'm feeling better.
Yeah.
For me, it was like sodas and stuff. Ooh, liquid candy.
I
And
know,
I
that's
had
so
to, I had to
good.
kill those. And I don't, and it's not that I never can have one. I just am super deliberate about it. So when
Yeah.
I do have a soda, it's almost a treat, and I
Yeah, you really
enjoy
enjoy it. Yeah. Yeah.
But everything else is water. We got, one of those Ready Refresh 5-gallon delivery. They drop off every month,
Yeah.
20 gallons of water. It's cheaper than bottled water.
Oh, yes.
And it's about the price of getting Brita and replacing that as often as you should.
Yeah, I know. Right. Well, yes, that's a
And
really
that's been a huge thing for us.
yes, that's a really good point. Yeah, you got to make it easy for yourself. I do think that's true, and so it becomes just a new way of living.
Because if not, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, well, I've just been working on better snacks. Something about being in menopause, I have to eat. I have to admit, Dave, you're going to hit menopause. I swear.
Yeah.
But in mid-afternoon, I have to eat either some kind of snack, a piece of fruit or something, and so. The other day I was saying, okay, so I guess it's carrots today. It's carrots or apple or, and it's so funny. I've already lost a little weight, which was not, that's wonderful, but I was really just trying to do what was best for my body. And so, and I feel better, of course, when that's the snack rather than a bag of chips or a piece of candy, even though I love those things. So, yeah, we're really, I love the idea of choosing one thing and really going for it. The other thing I want to really encourage is you do need to check with your doctor, because I've had some friends over time that all of a sudden just said, I'm going off meat. Meat is terrible. I'm never going to eat meat again. And then they ended up in the hospital because their iron got so low. So you need to, I want to encourage you to work with your doctor on this. We're not doctors. We're not medical professionals.
That's correct.
So I want you to really, I want to encourage you to work with a healthcare professional to work on a plan that works right for your body and your type. Even your blood type can have a significant impact on the way you're supposed to eat. So anyway, I really encourage you on that. And lastly, of course, is the soul. And I saved it for last because we talked so much about it. But in my view, all of these ultimately that we've said today are aspects of the soul journey. So clearing your physical space is very freeing because the energy can move and flow, and it allows more good to come into your physical space. When you start working with the mind, obviously, new ideas come forward and you're able to move out into the world in a different way, and it will impact your body and your spiritual work. As you do the work of your body, you're going to feel freer and lighter, and so the mind is going to work better. You're going to feel more energy to clean up your physical space, and then finally, the work of the soul. So the work of the soul is the emotional work that is ours to do. It's the work that we do in consciousness when no one's looking. It's not the picture we post of ourselves meditating on Facebook or a perfect yoga pose. It is, as the scriptures say, go into your closet and close the door. Pray to your Father in secret. So the soul work is a very personal, it is a very intimate process that you are in to grow and expand into the soul you were designed to be. And this soul work does touch every other area, most definitely. So if we find ourselves on a regular basis being triggered with a certain thing, somebody says something, somebody does something, it sends us back years. These we often call these triggers. They can also be called transgenerational complexes, complexes that we've brought through the family system. So these need to be looked at. There are also even beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about the world. And what I notice right now is everybody is trying to be right. And all the voices are getting louder and louder and louder. And what's really needed right now is a deep, deep look at the self, to see what's there, to see how to move forward, to see what's ours to do. And so as we do this, as we remove those old beliefs, as we heal those places that are deep within us, what happens is we are freer to do and live our purpose. So taking out the trash is a very freeing action. So spiritually, the best way to take out the trash is to forgive. Forgiveness is a constant theme in my life, in my teachings, and in my world because it's something I believe that is number one in bringing forth the goodness of the universe and helping me release what I no longer need. So, forgiveness is a real key to working this principle in your soul work. A way you could work this with your soul is I forgive totally and completely. I forgive myself totally and completely. I forgive you totally and completely, and I ask for your forgiveness. I forgive God totally and completely. I forgive people when they don't do exactly what I want them to do. I forgive you totally and completely. I forgive everyone for everything totally and completely. I forgive, I forgive, I forgive. I forgive myself. I ask for God's forgiveness, and I accept this forgiveness with grace and with ease. I forgive, I forgive, I forgive.
Yeah, I have another picture here. I mentioned fruit earlier. Have you ever like bought a bag of potatoes and like stuck them in the pantry
Yes,
and then completely forgotten about them?
yes. Ew.
And then suddenly you're like, what's that smell? Why are there little flies everywhere? What is this coming from?
Exactly.
And then you look in your pantry and everything's super organized, and like, oh, there's the cereal. Ooh, I have a whole shelf for crackers and spices and everything, but something smells off. You don't see it.
Right.
And then you remember, oh, 2 months ago, I bought a bag of potatoes and
Right.
stuck it on the floor.
Right.
And now you open it, or please don't open it. Now you look at it
Yeah.
and it's like weird and liquid and there's eyes growing out of it and it's all super smelly. And that's what that kind of feels like.
Yeah.
It's like if you,
Yeah.
you can have this perfectly organized pantry.
Yeah.
But if you got a bag of unforgiveness tucked away underneath, underneath the tea and everything at the bottom, then it's gonna kind of effervesce throughout your entire soul.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I got a real healing recently from doing forgiveness, and it's amazing what you're saying, Dave, is exactly right. I mentioned I've been really working with my thoughts, and so I kept hearing myself say. So when you work with your thoughts, something that you've said over and over and over for years, you start hearing in a different way. It's like, oh wait, did I just say that again? And so when I couldn't understand something right away, or I didn't think I was taking in information, I would say, well, I have a learning disability, and I just, so in other words, well, everybody just, deal with that, or I have to deal with that, or woe is me, or I'm a victim, or, it's like, well, what does that really mean, So anyway, I started noticing that. Well, in the meantime, I'm doing all this forgiveness work. I forgive, I forgive, I forgive, I forgive. I mean, I have been on it, asking forgiveness, extending forgiveness daily, sometimes 20 minutes a day, sometimes 30 minutes a day, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes as I go throughout the day. So the other day, I realized that this disability that I said I had for a lifetime, and I'm sure I did, that is now gone. So I can't really use that anymore. That thought has got to leave. So I realized I had done all this release work, and there was a lot of crying, and there was a lot of release, and there was a lot of surrender in the forgiveness piece. And I was really guided to get up and go to this particular store. And I can tell you, I've never done this. I got out my computer. I said, well, I want to know exactly where the store is in the mall. And because I never go to the mall, but I got my computer. I looked up the store. I saw where it was. I could read the map, number one. And then when I got to the mall, I knew exactly where to park. I knew where to go in. And I went right to my store. And I was like, oh my gosh, this might sound simple to all of you listening, but this was major for me, that I didn't have to wander around the mall. I didn't have to ask 2 or 3 people directions, and I didn't have to pretend to be reading the directory when I went in. That somehow forgiveness work released this inability to process information in a certain way, and that is gone. And so I can't say anymore I have a learning disability, because I don't. I may have learned differently earlier in my life, but I tell you now, I can read an aerial map of the mall. I used to not be able to do it. It didn't matter how it was color coded, or if I thought I should go right, I would go left. Or if I thought it was supposed to go right, I was supposed to go left. So what I started doing is, whichever way I think, it's the opposite. That's how mixed my way of receiving information was. It was like
I don't trust myself, so I need to do the opposite of what I think I need to do.
Exactly. And so after all this release work, being able to just look at something, know that I was receiving the information correctly, and walking in was this huge feeling of freedom. So I took out the trash. By forgiving. And so the forgiveness impacted the way I thought about myself, which is obviously involving the mind. And then I noticed too, I didn't say this when I shared this in church, I noticed too the way I was walking had shifted slightly. I was standing up. I was confident. I was speaking to people in a different way, because I wasn't always worried where I was going. And so people who know me would be like, oh, I didn't know you weren't confident. It was a really inward thing, and I think I was carrying shame about it.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so now I'm thinking back to where like I just handed you like lines to read, like for a promo or something.
Oh yeah,
You
it was
know?
very difficult. Yeah, that was, but no more. And as a matter of fact, a few weeks ago in church, I had jumped down my eyes would jump down a line, and I read the word. And before, I would feel shame about that, and because I've been working on my feelings, I was like, oh, I'll just read it over. It's okay. It's no problem. And so, wow. I mean, this has just been like about a week old. This, well, as you're listening to this, it's several weeks old. But this new learning, I can't tell you how blessed, how free, how confident. It's like there's a humble confidence that I know how to read something, and I know how to get from point A to point B, because for whatever reason, this forgiveness cleared this out of my mind. So for me, this feels like a life-changing event. Well, it doesn't feel like it. It was life-changing, because I have a new clarity. I have a new clarity that came in, and it was simply through the act of forgiveness. The intention was simply to clean out what I no longer needed, and my spirit, my soul was working with spirit and knew exactly what was mine to release.
And it's not like you sat down and went, I sure would like this learning disability to be gone,
That's
so
right.
I'm going to start
Right.
forgiving. No, it's you forgave because you knew your spirit needed to forgive.
Yeah.
And then then these other benefits started manifesting.
Correct. So again, I want to review, and just so you know, I want you to pick one of these. Don't get overwhelmed, but I want you to come back to this show and maybe listen again for when you're ready for something else. So remember that clearing your physical space is often a good place to start, because it begins to get the energy moving in your physical area, and again, that'll move energy in the rest of your life. And I also want to encourage you, if you give things away, to really give things away that are of quality, and the things that need to be thrown, just throw them. So, but clean out your physical space, and then work with the mind. See if there's something, a way of thinking that's an old way of thinking that's prohibiting you, maybe in your relationships or whatever. We want to release those, work with that aspect. Could even be how you're viewing yourself, which is what my work is right now. And then third, we've been talking about is with the body. So really looking at, is there a way that your body is congested? Is there a way that your body is not working in its optimal performance? What needs to be released there? And then finally, in your soul, what are the beliefs? What are the emotions that might need some healing work to be done? So we really encourage you on the journey, dear friend. And I also want to mention again that movie, Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and that might encourage you on the journey as well, to just take out the trash. And as you do, you'll find yourself in the moment. Remember, in any of these that you're working, breathe and go to your heart and let the thoughts dissipate to know what's yours to do next. We honestly believe that God guides you, God is directing you, and that you yourself know what's right for you and your soul. So we trust you in that, and we bless you on the journey, dear friend, and we thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to give a special thank you to everyone who participated in our T-shirt campaign.
Yes, thank
We've
you.
been talking about over the last couple of weeks. And so, yeah, those T-shirts will be going out to you very shortly. And yeah, thank you so much for your continued support of the channel. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey presented by CCU Orlando, Natural Awakenings Magazine, and Unity of Nashville. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, J.J. Hamilton, Arlene Meyer, Kathy and Terry, Marcia Mott, Nora Miles, Diana Cox, Leslie Williams, Susanna Garcia, and Shayla Mount. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2019 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.